Kai Hoffmann flags a resource nationalism as one of the top concerns for miners in 2023. Kai tracks deal flow at Oreninc. He is also host of Deutsche Goldmesse, a biannual junior resource show in Frankfurt. Kai, welcome back to Kitco.
Michael, great to be back on. Thanks for having me.
Juniors were mauled by this tightening phase. Kai, can you quantify how badly hurt the resource sector was in the latter half of 2022?
Yeah, that's the advantage of Oreninc because we see on a weekly basis what the numbers look like, and it has been brutal. Or at least, actually, let me rephrase that. It has been brutal for most of the time of the year, but then come November, the tide has turned a little bit, and financing window has opened. And when we compiled the number for the year, we came out at around $3.7 billion. Year's not over, as you know yet, but that's actually surprisingly better than I expected. Last year, we set almost a record $6.4 billion. Market sentiment told me it should have been way less, but $3.7 billion. That's keep in mind that's companies below $1.5 billion in market cap, and financings, pure equity financings below $100 million. So that was actually quite healthy to see, despite the weak market. But of course, deal flow has slowed down. The number of financings have dropped significantly by over 30%. I don't think anybody's surprised by that because as soon as the Fed started tightening in March, the investors' purses were just sawed shut.
Let's talk about that glimmer, I guess, that you saw in November. I think there's a little bit of good out there in the macro space. The markets seem to be looking past tightening, although, they kind of go up and then they retreat again. And then also we've seen the nice rebound of metal prices, Kai.
Yeah, absolutely. So gold went from 1650 to today 1830. So that gives, of course, the gold space and massive momentum. And we have to admit the junior mining space in general, doesn't matter if it's copper or any other metal, sort of hinges on the gold sector and the gold sentiment. If gold juniors are doing well, usually the other juniors are doing well as well. It's almost a pair trade, for lack of a better term. And gold has picked up. So the purses were maybe, a little maybe too heavy over the summer, and people needed to get rid of some of the money they had in there. We've seen quite a flurry of flow-through financings, a Canadian special where investors can write off some of the tax expenses that the companies had. So we've seen a flurry of those financings. And now, it's macro trends change on a daily basis. As we were recording this, the Bank of Japan just this morning changed course unexpectedly and started tightening. So the question is now, what does that mean for the rest of the world? Surprisingly, gold and silver are shooting up today, so that should bode positive. But I didn't expect it, and I think the macro commentators didn't expect it this morning as well. So there's a lot of guesswork involved in what we're doing, and I have to admit, I was happy to see that some of the juniors got some financing over the last 4 weeks, but a lot of them still haven't financed. And I just got off a conversation here with Rick Rule, and he expects the next 6 months to be quite bleak as well. And he's an anti-cyclical investor, and he looks at very tight deal terms, and he thinks he can still get a couple deals done before the tide completely turns.
News flow is going to be impacted in 2023. We're just going to be seeing less drill results, correct, Kai?
Yes and no. We have the companies, like you mentioned, that stop work programs, but we also have companies that are really excited that turnaround times have completely done a 180 as well. Now from 6 to 8 weeks, now down to 3 to 4. Companies are extremely excited about that because now they actually have news flow, which they didn't have before, or they couldn't calculate with or plan with it. And that has changed as well. So I think there's lots of good stories out there that have lots of catalysts coming up, PEAs, resource updates that are in the pipeline. And as I said, the good companies will continue to create shareholder value. They might not be always rewarded for it, but the shareholder, if you're a shareholder following one of those companies or not yet a shareholder following these companies, the market sometimes needs a bit of time to digest news and to understand value. And that's the opportunity that we have because we're so close to the market.
On Twitter, you were talking about the condition of juniors as per the data that you put through Oreninc. At the end of it, you had 3 themes to watch for in 2023. Let's start with resource nationalism. Why is it a key theme, Kai?
Well, critical minerals are more and more in the focus of the governments, especially in the Western world, Canada, US, and Germany as well. I recently had a conversation with the general consul in Vancouver of Germany, and the government lit a fire under his ass, for lack of a better term. I hope we can say this here, but there was a sense of urgency, and he's looking for projects, or at least introductions to projects and companies, to sort of bring home and introduce them to the other side of the business and start sourcing material. And Tesla talking with Glencore about a 10 to 20% stake, same thing. They're trying to secure resources. It's the government's job to sort of do that, and the government is start to facilitate that. We've just seen that yesterday. Actually, the U.S. gave a $24 million grant to Perpetua Resources to sort of secure and develop the antimony part of their project. It's Stibnite project in Idaho.
Following on from that, Kai, permitting is going to be key.
Oh, absolutely. NIMBYism needs to be addressed. You can't have cake and eat it too. You need to facilitate that progress. You need to permit projects. Of course, they have to be within the guidelines. Environmental needs to be protected, don't get me wrong, but you can't force your mandates onto other countries and source it from other countries and sort of outsource that again. It doesn't help anybody. The US, for example, the prime example, is very mineral rich, Canada as well. They need to progress and permit projects there. Arizona, there's a couple of copper projects. One of them has been in permitting for 20 years. That's just not feasible, and you can't plan with that. And that needs to change.
I also think that was in the headlines today was Lithium Americas and their Thacker Pass is supposed to get a legal decision early in the year as well too, which should set a tone for the rest of the year. Lastly, you say that Western governments are going to be struggling for raw materials.
Yeah, absolutely. And coming back to the conversation I had with the consul there as well, we need resources. We need to build supply chains in country, in the Western world. It's obvious that there's an iron curtain again up, between Russia and the rest of the world, maybe China as well. And we need to secure supply. Like there are so many geopolitical and macro events happening that we need to protect ourselves and need to think ahead a little further. Chip production, I think, is the key word here. We need chips. For anything that we do. I'm just looking around here in my office, and there's nothing that works without a chip here. And we need to start sourcing that from domestically, and we need the resources for it. As I said, Tesla tried to talk to Glencore to get a 10 to 20% stake. They're not doing it to get access to the trading business of their oil business. It's about the nickel, about the zinc, the lead, and access to their smelters and raw materials. And the governments are doing the same thing now.
Your top news story of 2022, Kai?
My top news story of 2022. That's a good one. I think it's really more that there's a shift in mentality of investors. People understand that gold, silver, and copper don't just come out of a store or a vault or anything. There's a supply chain behind it. And I think if we talk to the silver crowd, they really understand what a squeeze is. And if you look at the premiums on coins, I think people understand that there is a supply chain behind the whole process, and people are waking up to that. And I think that's the biggest news story for me last year. To put a bow around the year, is there's been a bit of an awakening.
Lastly, Kai, Deutsche Goldmesse, are you going to be doing it again this year?
Oh, we will. Yeah, I think timing couldn't be better. May 5th and 6th. We're looking forward to it. We're just putting the program together, and everybody, of course, is welcome to sign up and register. Looking forward to it.
Kai, thanks for speaking with Kitco.
Michael, thanks for having me.
He's Kai Hoffmann, he's CEO of Oreninc. My name is Michael McCrae, and you're watching Kitco Mining.